Since tomorrow is Valentine's Day, I thought it would be nice to talk about Tara of the Heart, which is part of the teaching of Agni Yoga. Let me start with a quote. And this quote is from the book Infinity 1, paragraph 194. It says, when the Tara of light will enlighten the world with revelations from the far-off worlds, then will she be affirmed as a manifestation of beauty. When the Tara of the heart illumines the world of love, then is she affirmed as a manifestation of beauty. So for Valentine's Day, I've decided to talk about this beautiful idea, principle, quality, concept, the Tara of the heart. Tara is a term defined in Agni Yoga as a goddess, the feminine equivalent of the Arhat. The Tara is a sister of the spiritual hierarchy, the brotherhood of light. Arhat means worthy one, deserving divine honors. So there's some definitions I thought you might enjoy having with Tara and Arhat. The Tara and the Arhat are those great ones who have entered the most noble and highest path of life, and thus, according to the teaching, become emancipated from the wheel of rebirth. In other words, such worthy ones are able to function at a very high level of consciousness, functioning at least in the Buddhic level of life. Now listen to this and imagine yourself, your future, stepping into a future like this. Arhats and Taras can choose to reincarnate. They can choose to return to this earth school as a great teacher, or they can choose to stay in the subtle levels, serving the super-mundane worlds. When I just can't help but smile when I listen to, particularly these days, our political pundits who have a power that they think is the overarching power over humanity. If we could be realistic about this, and from the spiritual point of view, that power is so limited. It comes with buckets of responsibility. But the limitation of such power is created by those who do not have access to the supermundane worlds. So their responsibility, people of earthly power have more responsibility than ever to awaken to their spirituality, align themselves to a power beyond the power of the planet, align themselves to the supermundane life. And I'm going to explain that a little bit in a minute. So I'm going to repeat myself. The Tara and the Arhat are called worthy ones who have a choice to reincarnate onto this planet. Such people would be called messengers of light. And these messengers of light can be found in any field of human endeavor, from political to educational to psychological, philosophical, science, religion, and even economics. They can be found in any of these fields of human endeavor, or they will choose to function and serve humanity from the supramundane worlds. That's their choice. Now, the heart. In the ageless wisdom, the heart refers to a golden 12-petal lotus located behind the physical heart. We're told it's about 4 to 6 inches away from the body. You can expand your thinking of this 12-petaled lotus to recognize that there is a higher correspondence to this 12-petal lotus. That this 12-petal lotus basically is a repository. It receives energy from higher correspondences. One of the higher correspondences of the 12-petaled heart is the 1,000-petaled lotus, which is part of everybody's nature, their individual nature. But you have to trust in this until you can see it, or you can feel it. See it and feel it. It's easier to feel it than to see it. It's easier to see it in your dreams than to see it physically. In fact, it's usually in one's dream life as you are functioning in these supramundane worlds in your dream life that you see this 1,000-petal lotus, and you learn how this 1,000-petal lotus has its correspondence to the cosmic magnet. So as you begin to think about space and recognize space is not empty, then you begin to think about what is part of space. What is our relationship with space? And the teaching tells us. And one way they tell us is about the cosmic magnet. See, the heart of the universe. And then as our consciousness expands, as it broadens, we begin to recognize, wait a minute, if we have a connection with this heart of the universe, this cosmic magnet, how can it influence us? If it's so invisible to us, how can it influence us? As above, so below, right? That simple axiom. And then we begin to learn and experience in our dream life and finally consciously that we have this lotus called the 1,000-petal lotus, of which all the lotuses that are a part of our nature make up. And so this 12-petal lotus that is a few inches between the shoulder blades, behind the physical heart, has its higher correspondence. And it's the higher correspondence that then magnetically sends its energy to the 12-petal lotus, and then it affects our entire beingness. I hope that's clear. This heart can be found in various stages of development. Sometimes, now I'm talking about the 12-petal heart, sometimes it's in a bud. Sometimes only 3 petals are open. Now imagine this, if we have this 1,000-petaled lotus that's part of us, from one life to a next, to a next, to a next, and in between lifetimes, we carry this 1,000-petal lotus with us, right? Okay, now imagine when we come into incarnation and our heart this 12-petal lotus of the heart is a bud, or it only has 3 petals open, compared to a person who has the entire lotus of the heart in full bloom. We can recognize almost instinctively, if not consciously, there's something different about that person versus, the person with the 3 petals opening versus all 12. And the difference, I've got to repeat this, reiterate it, the difference is if you have only a bud, that bud is not going to receive much from the higher correspondences. If you have only 3 petals open, you only have a repository of 3 petals, 3 energies flowing into it versus 12, versus a really active 1,000-petal lotus. See what I'm saying? And to activate these petals to correspond with today's talk has to do with your capacity to love and to have compassion. Sometimes the petals are hardened in varying degrees. Sometimes the heart is fully developed, a fully developed radioactive lotus. So I chose this beautiful theme to talk about as a reminder that for one to conquer spiritual heights, to become successful in the truest sense of the word, to become happy and full of beauty, the beauty of life, that person must have an all-giving heart. Doesn't make any difference if you have a photographic memory. It doesn't make any difference if you can repeat by memory certain verses or paragraphs from the teaching. It does not matter. What matters is if you have an all-giving heart. In other words, love and compassion. You can't pretend to have love. You can't pretend to have compassion. I mean, you can pretend. You can pretend, but it's very ineffective. A Tara of the heart is one whose heart is pure and all-giving of love. One whose heart is in balance with their mind. We can take our examples from noble ones, those who have walked the path of life before us. Since this morning's talk is focused on the teaching of Agni Yoga, what better life to look into than the life of the founder of Agni Yoga, Helena Rourke, a Tara of the heart. Helena Rourke was certainly a noble woman. In her earthly life, she was a wife, a mother of 2 sons, an author, and a world-renowned spiritual teacher. And when I say spiritual teacher, she was recognized and adored and loved by those in other religions. Imagine that. It reminds me in a sense of Mother Teresa. Her work was so far-reaching that it went beyond the boundaries of religion, even though she was Catholic. We didn't say, oh, she's a Catholic. We would say, look at what this all-serving, all-sacrificing woman gave to humanity, right? So Helena Rourke was a spiritual teacher, one who is deserving of divine honors, who entered the most noble and highest path of life, the path of sacrificial service, the path of synthesis. And yet, with such a description, her life exemplified humility. Imagine that. Imagine our political leaders today having humility. Maybe it would be a good idea to imagine. We know some have humility. I considered President Obama having humility. His wife, they have humility. So Helena Rourke, she climbed the heights of the bitter cold, majestic Himalayan mountains, reaching heights of 27,000 feet. Now, if you can't imagine 27,000 feet and what it must be like to be at that altitude, in Prescott, our altitude is between 5,600 and 6,000. People have to move away from Prescott as they age because they can't breathe because of the altitude. The oxygen level is thinner. At this altitude, this is only 6,000 feet. Imagine now 27,000 feet, right? So she was climbing the heights of the Himalayan mountains during the days that women were busy at home, doing laundry by hand. She was in Russia she was born in Russia in 1879 and died in India in 1955. She brought to humanity the newest yoga, not a physical yoga, but a spiritual yoga, the yoga that is only now becoming known worldwide. She wrote books, many under pseudonyms, and many more known as the Agni Yoga series. Two books that come to mind that she wrote were The Foundations of Buddhism and On Eastern Crossroads. There are remarkable books. These are remarkable books for a woman who visited Venus but never stepped foot on an airplane. Think about it. And I was also thinking back, and she was born in 1879. Do you know what was going on in 1879? Wild, wild west. If you live in the United States, think about the wild, wild west. Wild, wild west. Say that fast. Dirt roads, horses, buggies that the horses, that was a form of transportation. Imagine. She spoke and wrote in many languages, including Russian and English, French, and German. Her many diaries are still being read and studied and translated by people today, and with still unpublished materials finally becoming available. Some are being worked on today within this group, and I know a couple of other groups in other countries are also trying to translate and get her unpublished works out. And they'll be published in the near future. The teachings of Agni Yoga, the yoga of living ethics, can be understood as the teaching of life. So this is another really, really great definition. If you're with people and you're talking about the teaching and they say, well, what is it called? And you say Agni Yoga, there will be an immediate resistance. All they hear is a word they don't understand, and the other word is so controversial called yoga, right? So you say, well, this is the teaching of life. So Agni Yoga is the teaching of life. Helena Rourke, the founder of Agni Yoga, could be considered a Tara of the heart, and the master called her a Tara. Helena Rourke gave to humanity the teaching of life. Agni Yoga is a teaching whose verses number in the thousands generously offering spiritual discipline to practice, the science of life to contemplate, an exploration and an understanding of art and beauty, culture, and education to direct our thinking toward immortality and the continuity of life, insight into the higher spheres of life, higher thought, joy, and the future, and more. Helena Rourke's spiritual name was given to her as Urasvati. That was her spiritual name. So when you read the supramundane books and you see this word called Urasvati, you know that's Helena Rourke's spiritual name. And it means a star. Isn't that beautiful? Imagine. In the book At the Threshold of the New World, it says that Urasvati is a symbol of the mother of the world. In this book, it also says the great era is beginning because the spirit understanding is linked with the mother of the world. The approach of this very great era is important. It will substantially change life on earth. And this was, again, from At the Threshold of the New World, a prophecy that is readily coming into manifestation. Another definition of the word Tara is the principle of motherhood. Isn't that interesting? See how they take this spiritual word, this esoteric spiritual word, Tara, and now giving us definitions that we can relate to. That a Tara is considered a principle, the principle of motherhood. I think if we consider Mother Teresa as a Tara, we could certainly identify her as a principle of motherhood, right? Thus, a Tara is symbolized by the heart of the world, Mother. This can tell us that the great era that is only now beginning is symbolized by women of a nurturing heart, not a cold heart, not an unfeeling heart, but a nurturing heart. So think about the word nurturing. Nurturing heart. 12 petals of the heart whose higher correspondence is 1,000-petal lotus. The new era is upon us. The approach of this great era is the approach of the heart. It signifies that love will take on higher and newer dimensions than ever before. That love will give way to compassion. That a real human being will be recognized as one with a nurturing heart. This is what we want for Valentine's Day to symbolize, that it becomes the day of the nurturing heart. Now, a person without a heart, maybe I better eliminate the word a person without heart, okay, it makes more sense that way. A person without heart is a person with a dead heart. Think about this. A person without heart is a person with a dead heart. I'm sure you've met people like this. I have. It's very difficult to be around a person who has a dead heart. Such a person finds that nothing they have will satisfy them. Whether it's objects or people, they want more friends, more friends, more friends. More objects, more money, more this, more that. And since nothing satisfies them, they must possess more and more to feel secure. More and more girlfriends, boyfriends, wives, or husbands, more and more money, cars, houses, and so forth. You look into such a person's eyes and they are empty. The person is without enthusiasm, without a fiery spirit, without love. Their heart is dead. We see such people in both high and low positions, both rich and poor. Without a purified heart, without a loving heart, there is a condition of the heart where the petals of the heart are dried and petrified. A petrification of the petals of the heart is the greatest disaster for a human being. Do you understand now why it's like, other than, their personality life, to live a life as a personality who has a dead heart, they will be lonesome, they'll be depressed, they'll be ultimately suicidal, and oftentimes take their own lives. They're loners. They don't have friends because there's no magnetism. See, there's nothing. They're not giving. They're not radiating. Why? Because there's no higher correspondence feeding their petals of the heart. So the petrification of the petals of the heart is the greatest disaster for a human being. Purification of the heart is necessary if you want to use the energy of your heart, for example, to heal people. If your heart is not pure, your efforts at healing will have mixed results, and you will transmit both healing energy and poison. Think about this, healing energy and poison. It is the heart that heals people, but the heart will never be powerful unless it is purified. So purification of the heart means that you live a life of unselfish love. Boy, that's tough. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to live it. Unselfish love. You live a life that is absent of ulterior motives. You live a life of innocence. You live a life that is harmless, practices or lives a life of harmlessness and unity. People who have a purified heart see and sense things or know things others cannot know. They absolutely cannot know it. There's no receptivity. People who have a purified heart see and sense things or know things others cannot. For example, Helena Rourke visited a big monastery. A monk came dressed in ragged clothes, and he had not washed for maybe 20 days. He came and smiled at her. Helena Rourke looked at his eyes and said, "You are the Tibetan." "Yes," he said, and she melted. Master Moria tells a story that people look at the clothes and smell and think it is a big deal. So what if he smells? So what if he dresses like that? Because at 14,000 feet, people do not even have clothes to wrap themselves in. Do not judge from the outside. Later, they talked for a few hours, And she said she was in awe that she was in front of the Master Tibetan who was dressed like that. There are various things that we must be careful of. Now listen, don't think that you can go without a shower, unless maybe you're living in India at 14,000 feet altitude. Okay, otherwise take your shower every day. Please, thank you very much. Well, I'll be grateful. Okay. So there are various things that we must be careful not to bring into our life, for if we do, it will cause problems to our heart, causing the petals of our heart to further petrify. So here are some examples. Revenge. Revenge is one of those problems that will cause the petals of our heart to further petrify. Revenge petrifies the love petals of the heart and kills your sensitivity. That's revenge. If you petrify your subtle heart, then in future incarnations, your physical heart will give you trouble in the form of heart disease, heart attacks, and other diseases related to the heart. Another condition I do have to interrupt myself in saying this much because I worry about, when I put this down, I worried that people whose parents or children or loved ones have died of a heart attack, that they will think historically now that, they had a petrified love petal. The danger is when you have a purified heart and you have this heightened sensitivity and you can see and hear and know things that others cannot, it will take its toll on your physical heart. And this is why we have lost great ones who have died of heart attacks. So just keep that in mind so it doesn't cause you to question, well, why did this great person die of a heart attack if, fill in the blanks. So I'm just talking about normal people, normal circumstances in this regard. Another condition of a heart that is not purified is blockages of the energies of the heart. So what are blockages of the energies of the heart? Like I was saying earlier, if that person's heart lotus is a bud, or they have only 3 petals of that lotus unfolded, and they are bringing in activities in their life of revenge or the lack of responsibility. There's so many elements that can purify or that can petrify and create blockages of the energies of the heart. They're not receiving the nurturing energy, that flow, that nurturing rhythm of the 1,000-petal lotus. For instance, if you have a great love for someone, but behind that love lies your self-interest and vanity, you're going to have a blockage of energy of your heart. If the motive behind your love is not pure, your love energy cannot flow out to others. It is blocked within your heart, where it creates congestion with various physical repercussions. The condition of such a heart causes many troubles in marriage. There is a wonderful little booklet called What to Look For in the Heart of Your Partner by Torgrim Serdarian. I would suggest, and I think we sell this in our online bookstore, by the way, I would suggest all parents to study and discuss this booklet with their high school-aged son or daughter. This will help you to save your child much pain and suffering from choosing the wrong partner. Another condition of the heart is a state in which past memories of pains and sufferings continuously echo within your heart. This is a very dangerous state of the heart because it eventually will destroy your blood and nervous system. So, what is the best remedy? The best remedy is forgiveness. Forgiveness will wipe out such painful memories. The teaching indicates that in the near future, science will prove the existence of 100 to 200 different heart diseases, each one being caused by various negative emotional and mental conditions. For example, self-pity. Self-pity is actually a disease of the heart. Hatred is a disease of the heart. These diseases will eventually be discovered and researched. In Agni Yoga, Infinity, Volume 1, it talks about love and the heart. It says, "It is truly told about the power of love for humanity. Can one love a garden and despise its flowers? Can one, of course, a lot of this is symbolic, so we can hear it literally and then understand it symbolically and esoterically. Can one worship the power of beauty and not show respect for love? I attest, I'll never finish this. Just these ideas, I don't want to let them go by. Can one worship the power of beauty and not show respect for love? What is the power of beauty? See, the teaching. Can one recognize and relish and embrace the beauty of the teaching and then disrespect others? Not love them. See what I'm saying? Or the verse is saying, the verse says, I can attest that the power adorning our universe is confirmed as our mother of the world, the feminine origin. Indeed, one may cite many scientific examples indicative of the creative destiny of woman. Those who deny the evidence of woman's creativeness should reflect that woman gives voluntarily. Hence is the woman's path termed one of voluntary giving. Certainly in cosmos, everything is interwoven, but humanity transgresses the laws of the higher reason. Truly, the feminine origin is most beautiful. Verily, the pinnacle of beingness cannot exist without the feminine origin, and yet look how suppressed humanity has made women. Even in religious circles, the woman is only born of the rib of Adam, and thus not a spiritual authority. Many Christian religion sects teach this. Wow, we have a long way to go. The pinnacle of beingness cannot exist without the feminine origin. How badly people have mutilated the great cosmic laws, says the Master. How far people have departed from truth. The one who possesses the full chalice we call a voluntary giver, not a taker. A voluntary giver. By this we should say, a Tara of the heart gives all that she has to all that is known and unknown. As she gives, she nurtures. As she nurtures, she ignites the spirit, the divinity in all that she touches. As the divine spark is ignited in those she nurtures, they will echo the nature of the Tara of the heart, loving the flowers in the garden of God. The nurtured ones will recognize the beauty of the soul. The nurtured ones will recognize the beauty of the soul in each and every person. And in that recognition, the petals of the heart in those she nurtures begins to unfold. So let me close with this. We are given from the teaching 10 methods we can use to purify our heart. 1 is overcome selfishness. 2, clean your vanities. 3, check your motives. Once you purify your heart, you will have cosmic energy within you. The Master M says that we communicate with cosmos through our heart. We are initiated with our heart, and we conquer with our heart. So those of you that say, I've taken the second initiation, if you do not have heart, if you're not a nurturer, no. Only your brain thinks you have. We are initiated with our heart, and we conquer with our heart. Another method is to develop the spirit of worship, devotion, and a life dedicated to higher ideals. One day, Rabindranath Tagore and his father were taking a boat ride on a lake. It was sunset, and the light was casting a beautiful reflection against a tree near the lake. Suddenly, Tagore's father stopped the boat, and looking at the tree and the setting sun, the colors and the serenity began to fuse with the beauty in great ecstasy. That moment was an unforgettable joy in the heart of young Tagore. The adult Tagore, a Nobel Prize winner in literature, was a good friend of Helena Rourke and her husband Nicholas. Another method, renounce your ego. Another, do not obsess and possess people. Another, do not try to control the lives of others. And there are 3 other methods. Do not speak evil. Try to see beauty in everyone, and obey your heart. And that's it.